Assalamualaikum guys, welcome back to my channel. So inshallah today I am sharing with you guys 3 simple yet delicious iftar recipes. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. We are starting off with this pasta recipe. You can call it spaghetti recipe. I really don't know what to call it, but it tastes real good. So let's jump straight into it. For this recipe, you're going to need some prawns, an onion, a bell pepper, and also this halal hot dog is actually made of halal turkey and chicken, and of course some spaghetti, and I'm using single cream here. You can use double cream if you like, and of course some pepper and my good old jumbo chicken stock to flavor this dish. Before we begin, you want to boil some hot water, and then in a bowl add 2 to 3 tablespoons of the jumbo chicken stock, and add in some hot water to that. Is going to create this really nice stock for us to use as our base for cooking our pasta or spaghetti, whichever one you choose to use. To my pan, I am adding the equivalent of a few tablespoons of oil, and in goes my onions, and I'm going to cook these onions until they are slightly soft. Once they are soft, I'm going to add in my and allow the mixture to cook for about 2 minutes or so. Following on to that, I'm going to add in my hot dogs and then allow this mixture to cook for a further 3 or so minutes. Now I'm adding in my spaghetti, which I have split in half just so it fits into my pan. And straight away, I'm going to add in the chicken stock that we had made earlier on. You want to make sure that you do this right away so that the spaghetti doesn't stick to your pan. On top of that, I am adding in my cream. Another 2 minutes or so for the green onions to sink in and wilt into the rest of the recipe, and you have yourself this gorgeous and delicious spaghetti ready to go for iftar. This doesn't take a long time to prepare at all. Probably took me a maximum of 25 minutes to prepare, so I hope you guys enjoy it. It tasted delicious. The second meal that we are preparing is this coconut rice topped with chicken and mushroom sauce. This was so good. So to prepare our rice, we're just having 1 tablespoon of salt, followed by this whole bowl of basmati rice and also some coconut milk. In my saucepan goes my basmati rice, which I've tried to wash and get as much starch out of it as possible. Then followed up with my salt and of course my coconut milk. What I did was that I poured in my coconut milk back into the bowl, the same bowl that I used for the rice, and I topped it off with water because the basmati rice that I use usually takes about 1-to-1 ratio, so 1 ratio of liquid to 1 ratio of rice. So that is how I am getting this perfectly cooked rice. Now you want to really be careful when cooking coconut rice because coconut milk has the tendency to want to burn easily. So my tip here is to allow the rice to cook on low heat the whole way through. You might want to put like a plastic bag or something like that over it so it steams up very, very well. And then you will have this delicious, simple yet so flavorful, and the whole kitchen is going to be smelling nice, guys. But you will have your rice ready to go. Moving on to our sauce, I'm using some chestnut mushrooms, of course a black pepper to flavor the sauce, and I'm also going to be using thyme in with my chicken, and I'm using chicken breasts here. And keeping in with the whole, coconut vibe, I'm using some coconut oil and of course my chicken jumbo stock and some flour. You want plain flour preferably, but any flour you have will do. To prepare my chicken, I'm using this method of adding my chicken to a plastic bag, and then in goes 2 teaspoons of the chicken stock, followed by a little bit of black pepper because I like spicy food, and of course some thyme. And then I give that all a great mix before adding it into my frying pan. Place the chicken skin side down, cooking it on low to medium heat for about a few minutes, and then turning it over to allow the other side to cook. Now, your chicken will not be fully cooked, or you don't want to fully cook your chicken at this point. You just want it to have a gorgeous color around it, because we're going to fully cook it later on alongside the sauce. Now that our chicken is semi-ready, we are ready to prepare our sauce. So to my pan, I'm adding the equivalent of a couple tablespoons of coconut oil, and again, sauteing the onions in there. And then I changed my mind halfway through cooking this and decided to use some all-purpose seasoning, because I noticed that I've used a lot of the chicken seasoning already, but just adding whatever seasoning works best for you guys. Whilst the onions were cooking and browning off, I went ahead and made another batch of that chicken stock with added hot water in it. And then I added my mushrooms in. It might seem like a lot of mushrooms, but we all know what mushrooms are like. Once they're cooked, they wilt and become, reduce. So don't worry, put in as much mushrooms as you like. Added in that chicken stock that I made. Mixed everything in really well and allowed it to cook for a further 5 to 10 minutes. To add in our flour, I would suggest that you sieve your flour through. I forgot to do that and just threw in the flour, but it was fine. I managed to give it a good mix and everything blended in quite well. Add about 3 to 4 tablespoons of flour. Now I'm going to allow this to cook for about 10 minutes, or until I see that the sauce is beginning to thicken up quite a bit. Then in goes my chicken, and this is where the proper cooking happens. This is where you want to allow the chicken to fully cook. So give it as much time as it needs. Mine took about a further, let's say, 15 minutes, and then it was completely ready. And when it's ready, it should look something like this. And oh my goodness, was it delicious, especially with that coconut rice. You're gonna want to prepare this one, guys. So yes, this is my coconut rice served with chicken and mushroom sauce. The final recipe that I would like to share with you guys is this beautifully cooked couscous served with crispy salmon. For this next recipe, you're going to need some salmon fillets and some couscous alongside this homemade tomato paste. It doesn't have to be homemade tomato paste, use whatever you have. An onion, and I've got Scotch bonnet pepper, just one, because again, I like spicy food. Of course, some tomatoes. I'm going to be also using some chickpeas and some mixed vegetables. To season everything, I'll be using some fish seasoning, a bag of mixed herbs, and a couple of bay leaves. And of course, my chicken stock, as I always do. Again, I'm using the same method to season my fish, except this time around, I'm only using that fish seasoning that you see over there, nothing else. And I'm adding about 2 teaspoons of that in with my fish, mixing it up real well, and yeah, good to go. For about 3 minutes and turned it over, cooked it on the other side for a further 3 minutes, and that was enough for the size of the fillet that I have. Of course, cater this to the size of your fillet. If they're larger, then of course you've got to cook them for longer, all that jazz. To prepare our couscous, again, we've got our base of oil and onions being fried, and to that I am adding 3 tablespoons of the tomato paste, followed by chopped fresh tomatoes. And again, I am preparing the chicken stock in a similar way to what I did before. This time around, I used 2 tablespoons of the chicken stock, added in with some hot water, and pour that into my mixture. I then allowed the mixture to cook for about 10 minutes before adding in my chickpeas. If you are using larger chunks of mixed vegetables, I would suggest you add them in now. I found that a 1-to-1 ratio works best for this recipe, so I'm adding 1.5 cup of couscous into my sauce, because I added 1.5 cups of the chicken stock to my sauce. Hopefully that makes sense. If it doesn't, don't worry, everything will be linked in the description box down below. Because I have smaller pieces of mixed vegetables, I'm going to add in my vegetables last. And allow it to cook on the lowest possible heat for no more than 5 minutes, and then my couscous is all ready. Now look at all this gorgeousness. It's simple food, guys, but it tastes real good. You might realize that I like to season my food a lot because I hate bland food. Now this couscous here is no bland couscous. It tasted real good, even if I do say so myself. So that, guys, are the 3 recipes that I had to share with you. I hope you will try some of them, inshallah, at some point this Ramadan. And if you do, hit me back a message on this video and let me know how it went for you. Jazakallah khair, guys, for watching. Inshallah ta'ala, I will see you all in my next video. Assalamualaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.